Hey guys, this is Nick, and welcome to the first video in a series of videos we're going to be shooting in my studio about composing, producing, writing music, anything and everything in between. We're going to be covering what programs I use to write, the sample libraries, my setup, how everything works together, the shows that I work on and cues that I write, how to write orchestra, strings, synths, everything that I work on and the style of music I make. So for the first video, we're going to focus on how to write orchestra with synths, because that's a lot of the music that I write combines those two things. So I have a cue up here that I wrote in Logic Pro. That's about 3.5 minutes. It's kind of an action cue that goes through many different emotions, but I thought it was a good one to start off on. I'm now in Cubase, but I will show how to do things in Logic that I also do in the other programs. And I'll walk through it. I'll play the entire cue front to back, and then we can talk about things that are and how I made it and how I wrote different pieces of this. So I will just play this from the top, and then I won't talk, and then we'll go from there. Here we go. All right, so that is the cue right there. And a lot of stuff going on here, but I think I'll just walk through the beginning and kind of start by showing you the way the session's laid out. On top we have short strings, which I usually separate from the long strings because I do a lot of different processing on the two different types of strings, so I think that's really important to separate them. And then we go down into the regular strings, which is just symphony strings, some chamber, down to the brass. There's some percussion in here. We're using orchestral tools, Hans Zimmer percussion, and then some other, I think, custom audio files in here. And then a lot of this session is actually just synths that are layered below. As you can see, there's like 150 of them below the orchestra tracks. And I think the choir doesn't come into play here a little bit here at the end, but the keys also. So yeah, let's start from the beginning and just kind of play what this intro section is doing. Unfortunately, I can't show the picture, but you'll get the idea of how this cue is playing out. So at the beginning here, we have these long strings playing in conjunction with a ton of synths. And the majority of this is synth, honestly. Here, if I solo the synths, you can hear what this stuff is doing. And what this is just like zebra clocks playing in conjunction with the strings. And I'm looping that. But because usually with a lot of my writing, I don't, like just if I was just playing the strings, and it just doesn't sound as full. I mean, that. I mean, it just gives a whole other element if I add that other stuff below it. And then moving forward, it kind of goes into this other synthetic part here, which I bounced out because a lot of times it'll crash if you don't do that. So I keep them all in one place. In the main section here, what I did is a lot of short string processing. So if I just solo these short strings, you can hear it's kind of going. What I put on is 4 different things here. I put on a UAD plugin, which I put on a lot of my strings, which is UAD Neve 31102, because it just gives it a really good sound, and it kind of just adds a lot of top or bottom, if whatever you want. Honestly, if you can really, let me show you the difference between the two. It's not going to be a huge difference, but once you add it over a lot of different channels, you'll definitely hear the difference. And you can boost it to hear what it sounds like, but cutting the lows on the shorts just to like get a little of the air out of it, and then adding a sample delay here just to kind of widen it without having to stereo pan. It just gives a little more width without directionally panning it one way. And then decapitator. But this is combined with, I think, a little bit of synth. Let's hear. Yeah, a lot of this cue was just like clicking clocks and stuff like that. Just to give it that moody feeling. But moving forward to the big section here. I really like the way that sounds here. Where is that? This guy. Yeah, I think this is this guy here. It just kind of gives that driving, percussive feeling to the entire track. Whereas without the synths, it would just sound really weak. I mean, it just sounds like an orchestra, but that's not really the sound I was going for. And this you can't see the picture, but this is a fight scene going through the whole thing. And percussion is just doing a very generic thing. Honestly, it's just looped here. It's matching the picture here at this moment. But I do a lot of processing on percussion as well. Here, let me play the difference. This is with everything on. Everything off. I mean, it's a pretty big difference, I'd say. Just gives it a lot more character, I think. This is I use a lot of FabFilter just to take out some of that low end, boominess of the room. This plugin is great. It's a Fatso from UAD, and what this does is just, it compresses it and gives it that snap that you want out of a huge drum kit and makes it seem like they're all playing together as one. And finally here, we have another Neve that I think, what did I do? Boost it here at 3K, or at 7K, cut a little bit at 220, and boost a little bit at 12. And these are kind of just playing, I play them all on the keyboard one by one, each piece. And I do the percussion last because you don't want to do a percussion in a piece until you have all the musical elements in place. So, did it freeze? There we go. But it does give most of the low end to the piece. Now the synths are... And what the synths are doing here, it's just kind of giving it that crazy distorted feeling. And I have a lot of percussion synths. Most of the percussion I do is also in synths. And these are all created within a synth called Zebra, which I use a lot throughout most of my writing, honestly. And I just use either some presets I have, or I usually try to create most from scratch if possible, or from a preset to make it fit the sound I'm working on. This one, let's see what this sound here. This one sounds like, it's not gonna freeze on us. There we go. I don't know, just a very weird sound that I created. Combined with, what else we got going on? And this is doubling the lead. A lot of times I'll double the lead with the string line that's playing up here, just to like give it a little more grit or sound, or I don't know, just a little more distortion to it. So it's not just strings. Because a lot of time with sample strings, it's gonna sound sampley. They still sound amazing, but you have to really work at it to give it a different kind of sound. And then altogether, it just goes back to that. And then moving forward, there's another section. And then here we have a section where the big brass kind of theme comes in. And then here, just with the orchestra, it sounds like this. So, as you can hear, I mean, it sounds like an orchestra, but with the actual thing playing below it, there's a ton of other stuff going on that just is all the distortion and the synths, but you don't really hear them, you more feel them more than anything else, if that makes any sense. But usually I'll write all the orchestra stuff first, and I'm just like, is this sounding any good? Like, this sounds, if it's sounding good, that's a win, and then I'll add the synths later, and then it just takes time to get it sounding better. But the writing is basically just a French horn on top. I'll try to get down the chords in the piano first, and then figure out the melody, which takes a lot longer than actually programming it. And then once I have it programmed, I'll lay down the chords, and we'll move into just writing the actual, each piece is French horns, trombones, and then writing it in conjunction with whatever the strings are doing. Which here, it looks like they were just kind of playing the melody line. And yeah, just root notes in the bass. So with the orchestra, it's like this. And add the synths in. Synths are just doing same kind of percussive thing they were doing earlier, which is pretty dope, I think, to have. Without them, I mean, it sounds fine, but I think you just want, in most modern writing, I try to have something driving it forward a little bit more, the motor of the engine, of the piece of music. And this is just the same thing that was going earlier, something called Z-Clop. I don't know what that is, but let's take a listen. Like a horse or something like that? I don't know. Yeah, I think I had the idea of like a horse running. I don't know why, but there we go. So that's that section. And again, with all this stuff, I write the orchestra first before doing the synths, because you don't want to cloud the writing of the music with the sound design or anything else, because like you'll be too lost in the weeds and you will never get anything done. So I think it's best to always write the music first and figure out the good melodies and the way the harmony and the synths are definitely have to be second, because that's more adding salt and pepper to the mix as opposed to doing the whole dish with that. So I think always focus on writing your strings and brass and everything first, and then add your sound design after. Moving towards the end here, after the fight scene. Oh, this is still it. Where is that sound? Yeah, that big distorted sound here, where is that? This one here. This one came at the very end of the writing because it was just sounding like this. And I was like, oh, this is not enough for this piece. So what I did is just take, this is the way the sound, just like some random little woo or something, and then just distorted the hell out of it with, most of it comes from Homicide, which is this plugin, this distortion plugin. I just crunch it to hell here. With a preset I made, rhythm fuzz guitar, and it just is insanely crunched. Compress it a little bit because it's just such a crazy noise, but it added a ton to the overall piece of music here with what was going on in the picture. I think that's the ring out. Yes, there we go. Okay, and moving into this end here, we raise the tempo up just to kind of give it a little more tension moving into this final piece. It's just raising and raising and raising until it fades out into this quiet part. And this is just a standard string section where I'm writing with concertino strings and just layering it with a sine wave. One thing I would always recommend doing is taking whatever strings you have and just putting some sort of light synth below it. Just because it just adds another layer to it. It's the same, it's playing the same exact thing, but it just adds a little, I don't know, like a feathery kind of thing that those samples don't have. And there also is a low end going on somewhere in here. I don't know where it is, but I would always try to do a low end as well, just to give it a little more oomph into the samples. And then this here, where the villain arrives, kind of standard bass writing. And this is kind of stuff I'll do a while. I will play them each out on their own. So I will take, where's this bass here? I will take the bass and I'll spend, I mean, I don't know how long, forever you know, trying to figure out what the actual thing is that I should be writing. And it'll feel right once you get it, but you just want to, it takes forever to get, and then you figure out what works. And then I add that from the bass, and I think we have some, yeah, we just have some brass playing the low notes here. Yeah, pretty standard. And here, when some crazy stuff happens, we have this same kind of ring out. And we go into this massive impact, which I think here I used this like incredibly subby low end, trailer drop or something. I don't know where I got that. And then I just added a ton. I think it's just running through whatever the percussion is here, just to give it crazy low end. And then from here, it kind of just plays the same thing, running out to the end of it. More low strings. And that's it. Generally, let me pull up the mixer here. With my mixer, I am running everything off of a slave computer, which is running Vienna Ensemble Pro, which is a networking software which basically takes all the load off your main computer, or if you're running your samples off of a hard drive, to then put them onto an incredibly fast computer, which will just free up a lot of space for your actual DAW to run more efficiently. But what I do is I bus each of these into their own sections. I have a ton of subgroups, so short strings, long strings, low long strings, high strings, brass. This one's a little more simplistic, but 'cause this is a smaller session, but percussion, all of these are processed differently in the mixer with their own effects. So on the synths, I don't have too much. I have a Pultec and an EQ, and then I sum them all into a final thing. Here I was mastering it with a limiter on the edge, but I usually avoid doing that if possible. So yeah, with this, that's kind of it for this cue. A lot of my writing is like this, where I'll write the orchestra and then do the synths behind it. But if you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment or hit me up with anything that I could cover in a future episode that would be helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.